深入研究改革开放和中国经济。他称中国取得了令人惊叹的进步，倡导国际合作。他主张不断探索未知以解决紧迫的全球性问题，热爱教学与思考。他认为美就藏在一切理论研究里。高端访谈专访诺贝尔经济学奖得主马斯金，敬请收看。
关注国际焦点，洞察世界风云。大家好，欢迎来到本期的高端访谈，我是邹韵。今天我们来到了清华大学，即将在这里对话2007年诺贝尔经济学奖得主埃里克·马斯金，来华出席第2届国际基础科学大会。他如何理解基础科学在社会发展当中的意义和作用？机制设计理论提出多年，他如何解读该理论在不同领域的应用？又如何看待人工智能等高新技术给社会带来的机遇和挑战呢？今天我们一起在对话中寻找答案。
7月14日，2024国际基础科学大会在清华大学拉开帷幕。此次大会吸引了800余名国内外学者齐聚北京。其中，诺贝尔经济学奖得主、世界计量经济学会会长、清华大学名誉教授埃里克·马斯金正是参会嘉宾之一。遵循习近平主席关于加强基础科学研究、构筑国际基础研究合作平台的重要讲话精神，国际基础科学大会致力于加快构建世界顶级科学家交流平台，促进基础科学领域的开放合作，为人类科学文明进步做出重要贡献。
Professor Muskin, thank you for joining us on Leaders Talk. Well, here at the International Congress of Basic Science with over 800 top-notch scientists and scholars, what are some of the major messages that you hope to convey here, and how do you see the primary goal, the role and value of basic science in today's world, especially given the increasing focus on applying science and technology?
To begin with, I think one of the values of this particular conference is the fact that it's international. At a time when in the political area, economic area, there is increasing fragmentation around the world, increasing tension. I think science is something that can bring us all together. Science is, by its nature, a collaborative enterprise, and taking advantage of the fact that there are excellent scientists all over the world, in China, in the US, in Europe, and bringing them all to one place at one time has great value in itself. But the other reason why I think this conference is so important is that it reminds us that basic science has a critically important side benefit. We know from the work of the economist Robert Solow back in the 1950s that most economic growth can be attributed to new ideas. New ideas are essential when it comes to growth. And new ideas ultimately get traced back to basic science. You can certainly predict on the basis of history that all great technological advances will be based ultimately on basic science.
Well, Professor, you first came to China in 1996 and have been back many times since then. So According to what you have observed and your engagement with China in the past 3 decades, how do you evaluate China's or the role of China's opening up in enhancing international cooperation and global partnership in academic and research?
Well, there's no doubt that the fact that China opened up and became part of the international economic community and also part of the international scientific community had an enormous role in transforming China from it was a poor country 40 years ago to the prosperous and rapidly developing economy that it is today. And that's why I worry about the forces that seem to be driving the world apart.
Right.
I see meetings like the Basic Science Conference as a way of counteracting those separating forces and bringing us back to a state of international cooperation.
今天的中国与世界紧密相连，深度融合。当下，中国正在不断以改革开放的新成效推进中国式现代化，给变乱交织的世界注入宝贵的确定性。多年来，埃里克·马斯金密切关注中国经济的发展，他肯定中国改革开放中蕴含的中国智慧，称赞中国发展新质生产力的前瞻眼光。
Well, Professor, let's talk a little bit about Chinese economy because you once made the remarks that the world can learn from China's example, where the country made enormous success for showing how an economy can reform and grow at a remarkable rate year by year.
That's right.
So, to you, what do you think are some of the most inspiring lessons in terms of China's approach to the rest of the world?
China has made stunning progress in the last 40 years. Several secret to the Chinese success story. First of all, China implements the elements of a market economy. Market forces were going to be essential to the development of the Chinese economy. The use of markets was a critical recognition, but also the importance of opening China up to the rest of the world was a critical step in the right direction. Opening up and taking advantage of international markets are the most important lessons. The way that the Chinese government is organized, I think, was a remarkably successful venture. China has a central government. It also has provincial and local governments, whereas in China, each province is its own distinct economy. And that very competition is a source of economic efficiency. The feature that allows China to do experiments locally, I think another secret to the Chinese success story. That's good economic thinking.
Well, Professor, as an economist, I assume that you have noticed the term that is gaining global attention here about China's economy is a term called New Quality Productive Forces, which was proposed by Chinese President Xi Jinping. So it's a notion that features high technology, high efficiency, and high quality of development, which is in line with the new development philosophy. So how do you understand the significance of this notion?
I think it makes a lot of sense. The technology that was dominant in the 20th century is being replaced by the technology of the 21st century, and it makes a lot of sense for China to be out in front of that and putting its investment and its resources into this new technology. For example, I mentioned electric cars a while ago. China has become a world leader in the production of electric cars, which I think makes a lot of sense. They've made a wise investment to go in that direction because the world is going to need those electric cars.
But talking about electric cars now, the United States and some of the countries within the European Union are filing this investigation cases against the China-made electric vehicles. What's your take on that?
I was saying how much I believe in international trade, international cooperation. From the standpoint of international trade and cooperation, I think placing barriers to that trade is counterproductive. So that makes me unhappy to see this interference. My hope is that the tariffs will be removed and we will have we will restore free trade once again. Perhaps I'm being over-optimistic here, but that I think would be the happiest outcome. In other words, I see the interference with free trade as temporary rather than permanent.
And also, Professor, you've been critical about the idea that market alone, through invisible hand, will take care of everything.
Right.
So can you elaborate on your concerns about that, and what role do you think government should play in market economy?
Markets are powerful. They're a great way of providing motivation, which is the key to mechanism design. But there are some cases where markets don't work. And these are, I think the leading example are cases where there are externalities to markets. When an economist uses the term externality, he's referring to something that we do that affects others, but that we have no incentive to change. For example, we all know that greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide are causing climate change. But most companies that emit these greenhouse gases, or most consumers who emit these greenhouse gases, say by driving their gasoline-powered cars, don't have an incentive to stop emitting the greenhouse gases. How do we deal with this? Well, it's essential for the government to get involved.
So which means that for the market to function properly, it needs the joint efforts by the government as well as by the market itself.
That's right. In effect, the government has to create a market for carbon emissions. The government, by creating a cap and trade system, for example, is going to create a market for carbon emission permits.
2007年，埃里克·马斯金与另外2位经济学家因奠定了机制设计理论的基础，共同获得了诺贝尔经济学奖。在多年的发展历程中，这一理论呈现出了丰富多样的外延与内涵。上至国际合作，下至人际交往，机制设计理论都能提供决策参考。 现年73岁的埃里克·马斯金依然在理论领域深耕。作为学者，他功底深厚，在公共选择理论、博弈论、激励与信息理论等领域的成果颇丰。 作为教师，他培养了多位活跃在世界各地的一流经济学家。他说自己享受研究，常常能在理论中发现美，也喜欢教学，想要与别人分享美。
In 2007, you were awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics along with two other renowned economists for laying the foundation of mechanism design theory. So could you please explain to us, hopefully in layman's terms, about what this theory is mainly about and in what areas can it be applied?
Mechanism design theory is all about how to achieve social goals while still recognizing that individual people have their own goals. So the trick is, how do you reconcile those personal goals, the individual goals, with what society is aiming for? And that's what mechanism design theory is in business to show. So for example, if you run an organization, say you're producing, I don't know, electric cars, you want to give the members of the organization the incentive to work hard for the benefit of the company. Now, the members of the organization may care about the company, but naturally their first priority is to themselves. They want to earn a good income, they want to provide for their families. They might not mind working hard, but they don't want to work too hard. And so the question you face as the...
How to motivate them.
Is how to motivate them. And that's where mechanism design comes in. There are different ways of providing motivation. You can pay a straight salary. You can reward them on what is called a piece rate basis. That is, for each piece of work that they complete, you can reward them for that. You can give them a share of the company, so that if the company increases in value, they will be rewarded for that increase. Or you can do some combination of all of those. Mechanism design theory gives us the tools for understanding what combination of incentives is likely to work best under which circumstances.
Well, Professor, let me show you something. I don't know whether you still recognize this.
Oh, yes. My old house.
Yes, it's the house that was once occupied by Albert Einstein.
That's right.
It was also your home at Princeton.
That's
and
right.
This, I think I would call it the magic house, because it's also the very place that you got the call from Stockholm about winning the Nobel Prize.
That's right.
Do you still remember that very moment? What is it like?
I do, because I was asleep, and the phone rang very early in the morning, and yes, it was from Stockholm.
And they just tell you that you're the winner.
I was so sleepy, it was hard to realize at first the implications, but I was certainly very excited by the news. And I was particularly excited to find out that my co-winners were good friends and collaborators.
In your speech at the Nobel banquet, you quoted, "Some men see things as they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not." So why dreaming of the things never were captures the part of economics that is dearest to you?
As we've discussed, I'm particularly interested in mechanism design. Mm-hmm. And mechanism design involves creating markets, say, that never existed. For example, to solve climate change, we need to create, in effect, a market for carbon emissions. That doesn't exist unless we create it. And in this case, it has to be government that is involved in creating it. The most interesting social problems that we face, the most serious social problems we face, mechanism design problems. We have to think about new mechanisms, mechanisms that never existed, and ask why shouldn't they exist in order to solve these serious global problems like climate change, biodiversity, solving the energy problem, getting enough clean water. All of these are problems that call for new ideas and, in particular, mechanism design ideas.
And you once said that winning a Nobel Prize is like winning lottery, basically. Even though it doesn't change much of your life, it does have some negative effects. And in your words is being asked questions that I'm not qualified to answer because journalists think Nobelists know everything.
That's right.
But hopefully I'm not doing that. Hopefully
Well,
I'm asking the right questions
you've
today.
You've been very good about sticking to economics, so I feel reasonably comfortable there.
Thank you for that. So nearly now, 20 years later, which aspect of being a Nobel laureate do you enjoy the most?
And the Nobel has allowed me to teach a wider set of students. And that's nice. I think I have a bigger impact than I would have had without the notoriety.
Well, speaking of teaching, you have mentioned being especially indebted to your calculus instructors for opening your eyes to the striking beauty of mathematics.
That's right.
So now being a teacher yourself, how have you tried to emulate this kind of inspirational and holistic approach, just as your teachers have modeled for you?
When I teach, I try to show how whatever talking about fits into a big,
broader sense.
Beautiful pattern. I think human knowledge, particularly scientific knowledge, is beautiful.
And I also noticed that it's kind of rare for you as an economist to always love talking about beauty. Why is that? And after decades of experiences in this area, what part of economics or the beauty of economics that fascinate you the most?
These ideas are very beautiful, in the sense that they tend to be simple to express, but very powerful in their implications. Let me give you an example. There's a very old economic idea that goes back 200 years called the theory of comparative advantage. And this says that when, say, two countries are trading with one another, they should specialize in producing products for which their economies are best suited. That was more efficient for both countries. There were what we call gains from trade. Both countries were better off as a result of this specialization. Each had a comparative advantage. Now that's a very simple idea, but it has a very powerful implication. In fact, it explains a lot of the trading behavior that we have seen over the centuries. I think that's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
And you have attributed your success and achievements to luck. The luck of discovering economics at the first place, the luck of having remarkable teachers, and luck to, spend days doing things that you actually love. Apart from the good luck part, what are some of the other contributing factors that led to you to where you are today?
I think the fact that I enjoy what I'm doing is the most important ingredient. As I was suggesting, research is hard because when you're moving in uncharted territory, you don't know how a project is going to turn out. So what gets you through those difficult times when you're uncertain whether a project will get you anywhere or not? You have to be having fun. The process of trying to discover something itself must be enjoyable.
But what guided you through those scientific
Well, it was just the fact that I was having a good time. Imagine you're walking through the woods, and you want to get to the other side, and you don't know what path is going to get you there. So you have a lot of uncertainty about how to get out of the woods and whether you're ever going to actually succeed in finding the other end. But let's imagine that while you're walking in the woods, you're enjoying yourself. You're looking around.
The beauty of everything.
Exactly. As long as the process is enjoyable, the ultimate outcome doesn't matter so much. And yes, of course, we want our projects to be successful, but I think the most important ingredient in making them successful is staying on that walk through the woods long enough to give us a chance to get to the other side. And if we're enjoying ourselves, we will keep going.
So, Professor, thank you so much for your time today, and especially thank you for opening our eyes to the beauty of mechanism design theory. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the conversation.
在刚刚的专访当中，马斯金教授表示，世界很幸运能够有中国经济在发展顺境中扮演增长引擎，在遇到挑战时提供更多的确定性。他激励年轻人保持好奇心，在不同领域的研究当中探索艺术之美。他也希望各国能够展开合作，开放共享，共同推动时代进步。感谢您收看本期的高端访谈，我是邹韵，我们下期再会。